Mr. Cole, please stop messing with the bow tie. It's perfect. The stylist slapped my hand away for the third time. Her expression a perfect blend of exasperation and the kind of weary patience one reserves for an unruly golden retriever. I stared at my reflection in the mirror. Impeccable black tuxedo, meticulously styled hair. Even my nails had been buffed to a discreet, healthy shine. I was the perfect picture of a groom, if you ignored the fine sheen of sweat on my forehead and the persistent twitch in my left eye. You don't think she'd suddenly change her mind, do you? I asked for the 10th time. The stylist rolled her eyes. Mr. Cole, the ceremony starts in 15 minutes. If Miss Davis wanted to bail, she would have already. A frantic knock on the door cut her off. My best man and old college roommate, Leo Miller, burst in, his face whiter than his dress shirt. Ethan, we have a problem. He swallowed hard. The bride is gone. The can of hairspray in the stylist's hand clattered to the floor. I pulled out my phone. A single text from Chloe Davis was sitting on the screen. Ethan, I'm sorry. I can't go through with an arranged marriage. Don't look for me. I wish you the best. I looked up at Leo. When did she leave? Her makeup artist said Chloe told her she was touching up her lipstick 10 minutes ago. Then she vanished. Her best friend Maya Chin's car is gone from the valet too. I took a deep breath, the muffled sounds of the guests in the grand ballroom already audible. Over 300 people, all heavy hitters from the worlds of finance and politics. Richard Davis had dropped a 7-figure sum on this fairy tale wedding, and the princess had just bolted. Does Richard Davis know? Leo nodded. He's about to blow a gasket. He sent every security guard he has to find her. Hotel security footage shows Chloe leaving through a fire exit, with Maya waiting in the underground garage. A slow smile spread across my face. Classic Chloe. Even her escape was flawlessly executed. Ethan, you okay? Leo asked, his voice laced with concern. I stood up, adjusting the bow tie that didn't need adjusting. Couldn't be better. I pulled out my phone again, but this time I dialed a number I'd saved weeks ago, but never called. Mr. Evans? Yes, it's Ethan Cole. That condo at the Sterling Residences, the wedding gift, I've decided to sell. I'll sign the papers now. All cash, the faster the better. Hanging up, I looked at the stunned faces of Leo and the stylist. What? She can run, why can't I? A commotion erupted from the direction of the ballroom. Richard Davis's furious roar, faintly audible. Lock down every exit out of the city. Check the traffic cams. I want to know where that ungrateful daughter of mine went. I clapped Leo on the shoulder. Do me a favor. Stall them. Tell them I'm heartbroken and need a moment alone. Where are you going? To follow in my bride's footsteps. I winked. But first, I've got to liquidate the wedding present for my mother-in-law. 10 minutes later, I was sitting in a real estate office, signing the sales contract. The multi-million-dollar condo at the Sterling Residences had been a gift from Chloe's mother, but the deed was in my name. In hindsight, a stroke of genius on her part. Mr. Cole, are you sure you want an all-cash offer? The market is 10% below asking. As long as the wire transfer clears today, I cut him off. My phone was buzzing incessantly with missed calls from Richard Davis and the wedding planner. 2 hours later, I stood in Penn Station with a light duffel bag, a satisfied smile on my face as I looked at the new balance in my banking app. Chloe probably thought she was the only winner in this fiasco, but she was wrong. I bought a ticket for the next Amtrak train heading south, destination chosen at random. Before boarding, I sent Richard Davis a single text. Richard, I'll handle the condo. Please give me some time to process this. Then I shut off the phone, popped out the SIM card, and dropped it into a trash can. As the train pulled out of the station, I watched the city skyline recede, an incredible sense of freedom washing over me. This dynastic marriage was never what I wanted, but refusing it outright would have meant making a powerful enemy of Richard Davis. Now, the bride herself had done the dirty work. I, the poor, jilted groom, was just capitalizing on the chaos. Perfect. Oh, Chloe, I whispered to the reflection in the window. Thank you for doing the one thing I wanted to do, but never had the guts for. I had no idea where she was or how she was doing, but it didn't matter. I had a feeling we'd be seeing each other again very soon. After all, I was the one who installed that tracking app on her phone when I fixed it for her last week. The car jolted as it hit a speed bump, and Chloe woke with a start, her forehead nearly smacking the window. Where are we? She mumbled, rubbing her eyes. Her throat felt like it was lined with sandpaper. Clear Creek, Vermont, Maya, Sean said, steering with one hand while passing Chloe a bottle of water with the other. You were sleeping like the dead. I was about to check if you'd taken a Xanax. Chloe chugged half the bottle before she felt human again. The concrete jungle of the city had given way to lush green forests. In the distance, a few low-slung buildings were just visible through the morning mist. You sure this place is safe? Chloe asked, rolling down the window. Humid air, thick with the smell of damp earth and pine, rushed in. Maya rolled her eyes. Dude, this place barely registers on Google Maps. If your dad's goons can find you here, I'll livestream myself eating my keyboard. The car turned down a narrow lane and stopped in front of a 3-story building. The faded sign read the White Pine Inn. An old woman sat on the porch, squinting into the morning sun. ID, Maya said, holding out her hand. Chloe pulled a card from her wallet and handed it over. Lynn Smith. Who's that? You for now, Maya said, flashing the card. It's my cousin's. She's studying abroad. Just remember your new backstory. You're a battered wife on the run. Try not to blow your cover. Chloe opened her mouth, then closed it. A battered wife was definitely more low profile than a runaway heiress. While checking in, the old woman's eyes lingered on Chloe's face for a moment. Just you, dear? Yeah, Chloe said, staring at the tips of her sneakers. Room 302. South facing, gets good sun, the woman said, handing her a brass key. 80 a night, or 1,500 for the month. The room was cleaner than she'd expected, with pale green wallpaper, hardwood floors, a single bed, and a small balcony. Chloe tossed her backpack on the bed and collapsed into a wicker chair by the window. So, how does freedom feel? Maya asked, leaning against the doorframe with a smirk. Chloe closed her eyes, the sunlight a warm, red glow against her eyelids. Quieter than I expected. Quiet? Maya pulled out her phone. Your dad is tearing New York City apart looking for you. She played a video clip. Richard Davis stood at the wedding venue, his face a thundercloud as he spoke to a throng of reporters. My daughter has been kidnapped. The police are investigating. Chloe almost fell out of her chair. Kidnapped. Smart, right? Maya's eyebrows shot up. This way, the cops are looking for a missing person, and your dad's business rivals think you've actually been abducted. Double insurance. Maya, you're a genius, Chloe said sincerely. Nah, I've just seen more episodes of Criminal Minds than you. Maya pulled a wad of cash from her pocket. $5,000. Make it last. I'll come check on you next week. Chloe took the money, a lump forming in her throat. Thanks. Don't get all sappy on me. Maya waved her off. Oh, by the way, things on your fiancé's end are getting interesting. Chloe frowned. Ethan, what about him? He disappeared from the venue right after you did. Maya said, scrolling through her phone. Your dad told everyone he was too devastated to speak, but according to my friend's cousin's boyfriend, he listed the wedding condo for sale the same day. What? Chloe's eyes widened. The Sterling Residence's place? Yep, 10% below market, cash preferred. Maya whistled. Looks like your Boy Scout groom isn't such a Boy Scout after all. Chloe walked out onto the balcony and took a deep breath. Ethan sold the condo. That was completely out of character. In her mind, Ethan Cole was a mild-mannered, agreeable puppet. Whatever Richard Davis told him to do, he did. How much did he get for it? Who knows? Enough to disappear for a good long while. Maya glanced at her watch. I gotta go before your dad gets suspicious of me. After Maya left, Chloe lay on the bed, staring at the ceiling. Her phone was off and tucked away in a drawer, severing her last tie to her old life. The feeling was bizarre, like being dropped into a parallel universe. Her stomach rumbled, and she realized she hadn't eaten in nearly 24 hours. She put on a baseball cap and a face mask and decided to explore the town. Clear Creek was more lively than it looked. The narrow main street was lined with small shops selling everything from hardware to fresh produce. A few small restaurants were scattered in between. Chloe chose a diner that looked clean and ordered a cheeseburger and fries. You're not from around here, are you? The waitress asked as she set down a glass of water. Chloe nodded. Visiting. Family. Staying at the White Pine, the woman smiled. We don't get many young folks staying with Mrs. Gable. The burger was surprisingly delicious. Chloe devoured it and ordered another. When she went to pay, the waitress refused to charge her for the second one. You're too thin, sweetie. Eat up, she said, patting Chloe's hand. You come back now, you hear. Chloe walked out of the diner, her eyes stinging. In New York, no one cared if she'd eaten. They only cared if she was wearing the right designer, the right diamonds, if she could make the Davis family look good at the next gala. She wandered around town, buying some toiletries and a change of clothes. As she passed a small coffee shop with a help wanted sign in the window, she paused. Barista, $15/HR. Chloe felt the rapidly shrinking roll of cash in her pocket and pushed the door open. At the same time, in one of New York's most prestigious law firms, Richard Davis slammed a file onto a mahogany desk. I want a full report. Who did that kid sell the condo to, and where did the money go? The lawyer wiped sweat from his brow. Mr. Davis, the transaction was perfectly legal. The property was registered in Mr. Cole's name. He had full authority to sell. Bullshit. Richard slammed his fist on the desk. My wife paid for that condo. But the gift agreement clearly states, I don't care what the agreement says. Richard pulled out his phone. Get me Markson at the bank. Yes, right now. 5 minutes later, Richard hung up, his face grim. Freeze every account in Chloe's name. Credit cards, trust funds, all of it. Let's see how long she lasts out there on her own. Sir, perhaps that's a bit. And Richard continued, ignoring him, give me the best private investigator in the country. $1 million reward. I want her found, dead or alive. When he was finally alone in his office, Richard opened a drawer and took out a photograph. It was Chloe in her cap and gown, smiling brightly. He traced the outline of her face with his finger, then abruptly slammed the photo, face down, on the desk. His phone rang again. It was his wife. He took a deep breath before answering. Richard, have you lost your mind? Half of Wall Street was at that wedding, and now Chloe's gone. What am I supposed to tell people? Tell them she's ill, he said, rubbing his temples. Ill. Susan Miller saw Ethan run out of the venue with his own eyes. The entire social circle is gossiping that Chloe eloped with someone else. Richard's temples throbbed. That Cole boy. I'll destroy him. Save it, his wife scoffed. I told you he wasn't as simple as he looked. You wouldn't listen. Now you've lost a daughter and a multi-million-dollar condo. What are you talking about? I just heard that Ethan Cole was consulting with an immigration lawyer 3 months ago, she said with a sigh. He never planned on marrying Chloe. He was just waiting for his chance to run. Richard's face turned ashen. Are you saying he used our daughter? What do you think? She shot back. Not everyone is dying to get their hands on your precious empire. Richard. After hanging up, Richard stood at the floor-to-ceiling window, looking out over the glittering city. For the first time, he felt a terrifying loss of control. 2 weeks later, at the Clear Creek Coffee House. Lynn. Latte for table 3. Chloe expertly steamed the milk, pouring a slightly lopsided heart into the cup. In New York, the coffee she drank came from single-origin estates and cost more than her entire day's wage here. Now, she could tell the difference between instant and freshly ground. You're a fast learner, kid, said Mr. Henderson, the owner, taking the cup with a satisfied nod. Chloe smiled and went back to wiping down the espresso machine. The past 2 weeks had been the most fulfilling of her life. She worked at the coffee shop from 9 to 4, spent her afternoons reading at the town library, and her evenings watching cheesy dramas on the beat-up TV in her room at the inn. No galas, no charity dinners, no more of her father's carefully orchestrated chance encounters with eligible bachelors. Money was tight, but every dollar was her own. Hey, Lynn, before you head out, grind tomorrow's beans, Henderson said, polishing a glass. Weekends get busy. Chloe nodded, then remembered something. Mr. Henderson, can I get a small advance on my paycheck? He raised an eyebrow. Short on cash. Yeah, I need to buy a used phone, she lied. In truth, the money for Maya was almost gone, and her monthly rent at the inn was due next week. Henderson counted out $500 from the register. Here, if it's not enough, just let me know. Chloe thanked him gratefully. After her shift, instead of going back to the inn, she went to the town's small internet cafe. She logged into a webmail account she'd created, typing in the username and password she knew by heart. No new messages. She bit her lip and opened a news site, searching for Davis Corp. The latest article was from 3 days ago. Richard Davis attending a charity event with no mention of his missing daughter. She hesitated, then typed Ethan Cole. The results were sparse. Just a few articles from the wedding day stating that the groom was devastated by the bride's disappearance and was not available for comment. Good actor, Chloe muttered, closing the browser. It was dark when she left the cafe. She took a shortcut through a narrow alley when she heard footsteps behind her. She picked up her pace. The footsteps sped up, too. Her heart leaped in her throat. Clear Creek was safe, but you never knew. Lynn Smith. A man's voice called out from behind her. Chloe froze, then slowly turned. A man in a black trench coat stood in the shadows, his face obscured. "You have the wrong person," Chloe said, her voice low, as she took a step back. "Do I?" The man chuckled. "In that case, Miss Chloe Davis, maybe we should have a talk." Her blood ran cold. She turned to run, but he grabbed her by the wrist. "Let go of me." "Relax," the man said, releasing her and flashing a badge. "Private investigator. Hired by your father." Chloe stared at the ID for a long moment, then laughed. "My dad hired a third-rate PI like you. I guess he's not that desperate to find me." The investigator pocketed his badge. "Your father is offering $1 million for your location, Miss Davis. But I think you and I can make a deal." "What kind of deal?" "You give me $100,000, and I'll tell you where Ethan Cole is," the PI said, his voice dropping to a conspiratorial whisper. "I know you hate him. He ruined your wedding and ran off with your family's money." Chloe almost laughed out loud. "Why would I want to know where he is?" "Revenge, of course," the investigator said, as if it were the most obvious thing in the world. "From what I've gathered, Mr. Cole wasn't heartbroken at all. This was all premeditated. Several of your father's top clients recently received anonymous emails containing damaging information about Davis Corp." Chloe was stunned. "What are you saying?" "I'm saying," the investigator leaned closer, "that your little escape played right into Ethan Cole's hands. He used the chaos you created as a cover to attack your father's company, while he walked away with the cash from the condo." Chloe stood under the dim streetlight, the world spinning. Ethan, the quiet, unassuming Ethan she knew. Could he have orchestrated all of this? "Where's your proof?" The investigator pulled out his phone and showed her a photo. In it, Ethan was talking with a middle-aged man in a cafe. The timestamp was 1 week before the wedding. "Who is that?" "The CEO of your father's biggest competitor, Vanguard Properties," the investigator said, putting his phone away. "So what do you say? 100 grand for the full dossier." Chloe took a deep breath. "I don't have any money. You can find a way." He handed her a business card. "I'll be back in 3 days." As she watched the investigator disappear into the night, Chloe's legs felt so weak she had to lean against a wall to stay upright. She thought she had been the one pulling the strings, but it turned out she might have just been a pawn. Her phone vibrated. It was a text from Maya. "Emergency. Your dad froze all your accounts and has people watching me. Can't come next week. Be safe." Chloe shoved the phone back in her pocket, a harsh reality setting in. She was well and truly on her own. 3 Lynn, an order for a pour-over at table 3. "You're up." "Mr." Henderson's voice echoed from the front of the shop. Chloe wiped her hands and hurried out from the back. It was her first time being trusted with a pour-over, a technique she'd been secretly practicing for weeks. "Yurgachev, light medium roast," Henderson said, handing her the beans and lowering his voice. "The guy at table 3 knows his coffee. Don't screw it up." Chloe nodded, taking a deep breath. She ground the beans, her movements as precise as she could make them. She heated the water to 200 degrees, started the timer for the 30-second bloom, and began the slow, circular pour. "Nice technique." A low, masculine voice spoke from just behind her. Chloe's hand jerked, and hot water splashed over the edge of the filter. The voice was so familiar it made her skin prickle, a voice she heard in her nightmares. Impossible. Absolutely impossible. She slowly lifted her head, her gaze traveling up from a pair of polished leather boots, past long legs in well-fitting chinos, over a tailored casual blazer, and finally landing on the face she thought she'd never have to see again. Ethan Cole. He was standing right there, a faint, unreadable smile playing on his lips, his eyes so clear it was as if they'd just bumped into each other at a friend's party. "You." Chloe's throat went dry. She almost blurted out, "What are you doing here?" "The name's Alex Carter," Ethan said, extending a polite hand. "I just moved to Clear Creek." Chloe stared at his hand, her mind racing. What was this? Was he pretending not to know her? Or did he genuinely not recognize her? She was, after all, makeup-free, wearing a coffee-stained apron, her hair pulled back in a messy ponytail. "Lynn, stop daydreaming," Henderson called from behind the counter. Chloe snapped back to reality, giving Ethan's hand a brief, clammy shake. Lynn Smith. Your pour-over technique is very professional, Miss Smith, Ethan remarked with a slight nod. Where did you learn? YouTube videos, she stammered, quickly looking down to continue pouring. Damn it. Her performance was abysmal. Ethan didn't leave. Instead, he leaned against the counter, watching her with an unnerving intensity. Chloe could feel his gaze on her, like an X-ray trying to see right through her. Are you here on vacation, Mr. Carter? She asked, forcing herself to sound calm, trying to regain some control of the situation. Something like that, he said with a small smile. Escaping the city, you know how it is. Chloe nearly dropped the kettle. What was he implying? Coffee's ready, she said hastily, placing the cup on a tray, ready to deliver it. Allow me, Ethan said, smoothly taking the tray from her. As a fellow newcomer, it's the least I can do. Chloe watched, dumbfounded, as he walked over to table 3, his posture as straight and confident as ever. What was he playing at? Lynn, stop staring and go wash the dishes in the back. Henderson's voice jolted her back to reality. Chloe practically fled to the kitchen, shutting the door behind her and leaning against it, gasping for air. This couldn't be a coincidence. Clear Creek was hundreds of miles from New York. How could Ethan Cole just happen to walk into the coffee shop where she worked? And his act was bizarre, like he was playing a part in a movie. The sink was piled high with dirty dishes. Chloe turned on the faucet, her movements mechanical. She needed to calm down and think. Ethan was pretending not to know her, and he'd given himself a fake name, Alex Carter. What kind of lame alias was that, unless he had a plan? Ow! Chloe yelped as hot water splashed onto her hand. She turned off the water, staring at the red mark on her skin, when a more terrifying thought occurred to her. If Ethan could find her, could her father's PI be far behind? Lynn, we're getting busy out here. Henderson's call interrupted her spiraling thoughts. Chloe took a deep breath and retied her apron. Whatever Ethan's game was, she couldn't lose her cool. If he wanted to play strangers, she would play along. For the next few hours, Chloe forced herself to focus on work, deliberately avoiding Ethan's section of the cafe. But the place was too small. She could always feel his eyes on her. To make matters worse, the customer at table 3, an older gentleman with a goatee, seemed to hit it off with Ethan, and the two of them were deep in conversation. That Mr. Carter seems like a nice guy, Henderson commented later that afternoon when the rush had died down. An architect from New York. He's thinking of opening a studio here in town. Chloe nearly twisted the rag in her hands in two. He told you that? Yep. Just signed a 3-year lease on that vacant Victorian on Main Street, Henderson said, pouring her a glass of lemonade. What? You two know each other? No, not at all, Chloe said, taking a large gulp of the lemonade. He just looks familiar. He said it's his first time in Vermont. Henderson chuckled. Lynn, you don't have a little crush on him, do you? Chloe choked on her lemonade, coughing violently. A crush on Ethan, the man she'd left at the altar? The man who was probably plotting revenge against her entire family? I'm taking out the trash, she said, grabbing the bin full of coffee grounds and escaping out the back door. The back alley was quiet and damp. Chloe dumped the grounds into the large dumpster and took several deep breaths to steady her racing heart. She had to figure out what Ethan was really up to, but a direct confrontation was obviously a bad idea. Need a hand with that? Chloe spun around. Ethan was standing a few feet away, holding a large black umbrella. The setting sun cast a golden halo around him, making him look like he'd just stepped out of a magazine. I'm fine, she said, instinctively taking a step back until her back was against the cold brick wall. Ethan didn't move closer, just gestured with the umbrella. Looks like rain. The forecast didn't say anything about rain. Mountain weather. Unpredictable, he said, glancing up at the sky. A lot like life, full of surprises. Chloe narrowed her eyes. Like what? Like running into someone who looks just like someone you used to know, Ethan said, his gaze fixed on her face. Miss Smith, you remind me of an old acquaintance. Her heart hammered against her ribs. Oh yeah, what kind of acquaintance? Someone who... He seemed to be choosing his words carefully, left without saying goodbye. Just then, a low rumble of thunder echoed through the valley, and fat raindrops began to fall. Ethan quickly opened the umbrella, stepping forward to cover her. Thanks, but I can't... Chloe started to say, but a sudden gust of wind caught the umbrella, turning it inside out. Ethan fumbled with the mangled umbrella, stepped in a puddle, and stumbled forward, crashing into her. They both fell against the damp wall, his arms slamming into the brick next to her ear, narrowly avoiding crushing her. "Sorry," he murmured, his breath warm on her cheek. He was too close. So close she could smell the faint, woodsy scent of his cologne and see the tiny raindrops clinging to his eyelashes. In a movie, this would be the moment they kissed. In reality, Chloe just wanted to punch him. "Get off me," she said through clenched teeth. Ethan immediately pulled back and offered her a hand. Chloe ignored it, pushing herself up. Her clothes were soaked. "Let me walk you home," he said, looking down at the ruined umbrella with a chagrined expression. "No, thanks." Chloe turned to leave, but a loud crash came from the back of the coffee shop. "Lynn, help!" Henderson's voice was filled with panic. Chloe ran back inside to a scene of chaos. A pipe under the kitchen sink had burst, and water was spraying everywhere, already flooding the floor. Henderson was trying futilely to stop the leak with a towel, completely drenched. "Where's the main water valve?" Ethan asked, suddenly appearing behind her. "Outside by the back wall," Henderson shouted. Without a word, Ethan ran out into the downpour. A minute later, the geyser of water slowed to a trickle and then stopped. Chloe stood frozen, staring at the flooded kitchen, not knowing where to begin. "We need to clear the water first," Ethan said, rolling up his sleeves and grabbing a mop, "or it'll leak through to the basement." For the next half hour, the three of them worked together to clean up the mess. Chloe was stunned by Ethan's competence. He not only knew how to patch the pipe temporarily, but could also pinpoint where Henderson kept his tools, moving with the efficiency of a seasoned handyman. "Mr. Carter, thank you so much," Henderson said, shaking Ethan's hand vigorously. "You saved my shop." "Happy to help," Ethan said modestly. Water dripped from his hair, and his white shirt was soaked, clinging to his torso and revealing the faint outline of a well-defined six-pack. Chloe quickly looked away. "I'll get some towels." When she returned, Henderson had gone to the front to take a call, leaving her alone in the kitchen with Ethan. He was examining the burst pipe, a thoughtful frown on his face. "Here," Chloe said, handing him a towel. Ethan took it and wiped his face. "Thanks. This pipe is old. It needs to be replaced." "You know about plumbing, too?" Chloe couldn't help but ask. "Worked as a handyman in college to pay tuition," he said dismissively. "And when you're an architect on a construction site, you have to know a little bit of everything." Chloe remembered her father's assessment of Ethan, a nerdy architect who can't do anything but draw blueprints. It seemed her father couldn't have been more wrong. "Thanks for your help today," she said reluctantly, "but I still want to know why you're really in Clear Creek." Ethan paused, towel in hand, and looked directly into her eyes. "Like I said, I'm escaping the city. Just a coincidence." "There are no coincidences in life, Chloe. Only well-disguised intentions," he said, handing the towel back to her. "See you tomorrow, Miss Smith." Chloe watched him leave, her thoughts in a turmoil. Ethan Cole was an enigma, and she wasn't sure she wanted to solve the puzzle. Henderson insisted on closing early and pressed $200 into Chloe's hand for a cab. The rain had stopped, but Chloe took the cab anyway. She'd had enough excitement for one day. When she got back to the inn, Mrs. Gable, the owner, gave her a conspiratorial look. "You have a visitor, dear, waiting for you outside your room." Chloe's heart skipped a beat. "Ethan, where the P? I?" She crept up the stairs to the third floor and saw a familiar figure sitting on the floor by her door, scrolling on her phone. Maya. Maya leaped to her feet and threw her arms around her. Surprised, Chloe unlocked the door and pulled her best friend inside. "What are you doing here? I thought you were being watched." "I gave them the slip," Maya said proudly, pulling snacks and toiletries from her backpack. "Brought you some supplies." A wave of warmth washed over Chloe. "Thanks, but I saw Ethan today." The bag of chips in Maya's hand fell to the floor. "What?" "He just showed up at the coffee shop, pretended he didn't know me, said his name was Alex Carter." Whoa, hold on," Maya interrupted. "Are you sure it was him? Not just some guy who looks like him?" "Unless there are two identical guys in the world who also happen to be architects who know how to fix burst pipes. Yeah, it was him," Chloe said, collapsing onto the bed and recounting the day's bizarre events. When she finished, Maya's expression was grim. Chloe, this is not a coincidence. He followed you here. I know, but how did he find me? The PI. Maya guessed. Or maybe he put a tracking app on your phone. Chloe shot upright. The week before the wedding, he fixed my phone for me. See, Maya slapped her thigh. I told you he was shady. Chloe, you need to be careful. He could be here for revenge. Revenge for leaving him at the altar? Or, Maya lowered her voice. Maybe he has some beef with your dad and used your escape to create a diversion. Chloe remembered what the investigator had said, and a knot of dread formed in her stomach. If Ethan was really plotting something, she was in a very dangerous position. What should I do? First, don't let on that you know who he is, Maya advised. Second, find out why he's really here. If he leased a building, there has to be public record of it. Chloe nodded, suddenly feeling exhausted. She thought running away was the solution, but it seemed she had just stepped into an even bigger mess. All right, Maya said, pulling a new phone and SIM card from her bag. Use this. Ditch the old one. Chloe took the phone gratefully. You're a lifesaver. I know, Maya said with a grin. But seriously, Chloe, you need to be prepared. If Ethan Cole is playing some kind of game, it's only just begun. Chloe looked out the window. The night in Clear Creek was peaceful and quiet, but she knew a storm was coming. For at 6 in the morning, Chloe slipped out the back door of the inn. At this hour, Clear Creek was still asleep, the only sound a swish of a street cleaner's broom. Morning, Lynn. Chloe nearly choked. Ethan, no, Alex, was sitting under the large oak tree in front of the inn, holding a steaming cup of coffee. The morning light filtered through the leaves, dappling his face in shadow. What are you doing here? Chloe clutched the strap of her backpack, her knuckles white. Ethan stood up, brushing non-existent dust from his jeans. Just out for a morning jog. Turns out the owner of this inn is a distant cousin of mine. Chloe had to suppress a laugh. That was the most ridiculous lie she'd ever heard. Mrs. Gable had lived in Clear Creek for 60 years. She didn't have any cousins from New York. Oh, what a coincidence, she said, forcing a smile. Well, I have to get to work. I'll walk with you. It's on my way, he said, falling in a step beside her. The studio I rented is right next to the coffee shop. Chloe gritted her teeth. The nerve of this guy was unbelievable. She quickened her pace, but his long legs easily kept up. Do you always go to work this early? MMHM. Have you had breakfast? Yep. Sleep well. Chloe stopped dead in her tracks. Mr. Carter, do I know you? Ethan blinked, his expression as innocent as a schoolboy's. Just being neighborly. Isn't that what people do in small towns? She took a deep breath, telling herself not to fall for his act. He was trying to provoke her, to make her slip up. Thanks for the concern, she said with a tight smile. But I prefer to walk alone. Understood. He nodded, but made no move to leave. By the way, I heard there's a farmer's market on the weekend. Have you been? Chloe started walking again, practically jogging now. Ethan followed at a leisurely pace, even stopping to pick a wildflower from the side of the road and offering it to her. A morning daisy, for you. Chloe stared at the little yellow flower, speechless. What was this, some kind of twisted, runaway couple rom-com? I don't like flowers, she said flatly, pushing open the back door of the coffee shop. Mr. Henderson was taking inventory. He looked up as they entered, one after the other, his eyebrows shooting up. Well, look at you two. Come to work together. Just bumped into each other outside, Chloe said quickly, tying on her apron. Mr. Henderson, where's the list for today's bean order? Henderson gave her a knowing look and handed her a clipboard. Oh, Mr. Carter, the landlord just dropped off the keys to your studio. Ethan took the keys. Thanks. By the way, I noticed yesterday that the drainage pipe in the shop looks a little old. I happen to know a reliable plumber, if you need a referral. That would be great. Henderson's face lit up. Old man Miller retired and moved in with his son. I've been looking for someone. Chloe started grinding beans, using so much force it sounded like she was trying to break the machine. When had Ethan had time to inspect the drainage pipe? What was he plotting? Lynn, go break down those boxes in the backyard, Henderson said suddenly. Chloe felt a rush of relief and fled to the back. Sunlight filled the small yard where several large cardboard boxes were stacked. She found a box cutter and started slicing them open. Need some help? Her hand slipped, the blade cutting a jagged line across the cardboard. Ethan had appeared silently behind her, so close she could smell the faint scent of his aftershave. Do you ever make a sound when you walk? Chloe spun around, nearly colliding with his chest, and quickly stepped back. Ethan shrugged. Occupational hazard for an architect. Light on my feet. He crouched down and deftly broke down another box. New mugs. Yeah, she admitted reluctantly. Mr. Henderson says we need to stock up for the weekend rush. Ethan picked up a mug, holding it up to the light. Nice glaze, but some of these might have air bubbles. I'll help you sort them. Chloe watched his long, slender fingers turn the mug, his movements as precise as if he were handling a delicate instrument. In New York, she had only ever seen him in a suit and tie. She never imagined those hands could be so adept at manual labor. You've done this before? The moment the words left her mouth, she regretted them. It sounded too much like she was prying into his past. A small smile touched Ethan's lips. Worked at a coffee shop in college, and spent a lot of time on construction sites after that. He handed a mug to her. This one has a chip on the rim. Could cut someone. Chloe took the mug, her fingertips accidentally brushing the back of his hand. She pulled back as if shocked. Ethan pretended not to notice and continued inspecting the other mugs. Why did you come to Clear Creek? She asked suddenly. His movements paused for a fraction of a second. Like I said, to escape the city. What a coincidence. Me too, Chloe said pointedly. Ethan looked up, the sunlight catching in his eyes. Yeah, what a coincidence. Their eyes met for a moment, and then they both looked away. Chloe's heart was pounding. What was this? The next episode in their twisted country living drama. Lynn, customer up front. Henderson's voice broke the tension. Chloe practically ran out of the backyard. For the next few days, she did her best to avoid any situation where she might be alone with Ethan. But Clear Creek was too small. Whether she was at the laundromat, the grocery store, or the library, she would inevitably run into him. On Thursday afternoon, Chloe went to the town's public bathhouse for a proper shower. As she approached the entrance, she heard a familiar voice singing, terribly off-key, but with gusto. Splish splash, I was talking a bath. Chloe froze. Ethan, at the public bathhouse? She turned to leave, but ran smack into the owner. Lynn, there you are, the woman boomed, loud enough for the whole street to hear. Your boyfriend's in there, singing his heart out. Tell him to quiet down before the neighbors complain. He's not Hey, Alex, your girlfriend's here. The woman was already shouting inside. The door to the men's side slid open, and Ethan poked his head out, his hair covered in shampoo, a towel wrapped around his waist. Water droplets trickled down his well-defined chest and disappeared under the towel. Chloe swore she didn't stare, at least, not for more than 3 seconds. Lynn. Ethan looked genuinely surprised, as if they'd run into each other at a Michelin-starred restaurant instead of the doorway of a public bathhouse. You're here for a shower, too? Chloe's face felt hot enough to fry an egg. I just remembered I have something to do. Wait, Ethan called after her. They're showing an outdoor movie in the town square tonight at 7. Want to go? I'm busy. Roman holiday, Ethan added. With Audrey Hepburn. You know, the one about the runaway princess and the reporter. Chloe narrowed her eyes. What was he getting at? We'll see, she said vaguely and hurried away. At 6:50 p.m., Chloe was hiding in her room at the inn, refusing to admit to herself that she had changed her outfit 3 times and even put on lipstick. Her phone was flooded with texts from Maya, all of them warning her to stay away from Ethan. He's definitely planning something. Don't forget how he sold the condo. Chloe, don't tell me you're actually falling for him. Chloe tossed the phone onto the bed. Of course, she wasn't falling for him. She was just curious about what he was up to. That was all. At exactly 7 p.m., there was a knock on her door. Lynn, are you in there? It was Mrs. Gable. There's a man from out of town in the square, asking around for a girl who looks like you. Chloe threw the door open. What did he look like? Black trench coat, sunglasses. Said he was looking for his sister, the old woman whispered. Didn't seem like a good person to me. The private investigator. Chloe's blood ran cold. Her father's men had finally found Clear Creek. Mrs. Gable, can I borrow a hat and a jacket? 5 minutes later, wearing a bucket hat and an oversized flannel shirt, Chloe slipped out the back door of the inn. She had to warn Mr. Henderson not to come to work tomorrow, then find a place to hide for a few days. But as she rounded the corner of the street, she walked straight into a solid wall of a person. Whoa, careful. Ethan steadied her by the shoulders, his eyes sharp. What's wrong? Chloe tried to pull away, but his grip was like iron. Let go of me. Is someone looking for you? He asked suddenly. She froze. How did you know? A guess, he said, releasing her. I saw a stranger asking about Lynn Smith. Said her brother sent him to find her. Chloe bit her lip. Ethan knew she was hiding from someone, but he didn't know the PI was actually looking for Chloe Davis. This misunderstanding. Maybe she could use it. I don't want to see him, she said, looking down, her voice trembling. My brother. He's too controlling. Ethan's expression softened immediately. I understand. Come with me. He took her hand and led her through a series of alleys to a 2-story Victorian house. A sign hanging by the door read, Alex Carter, Architectural Design. This is the place I'm renting. You can stay on the 2nd floor, Ethan said, unlocking the door. You can hide here while I go check out the situation in the square. Chloe hesitated. Go to Ethan's house. It was too risky. But the PI was in the square. Thank you, she finally said, following him inside. The studio was simple. A large drafting table, a few chairs, and some sketches pinned to the wall. There was a small kitchenette in the corner and a staircase leading to the 2nd floor. Have a seat. Can I get you something to drink? Ethan asked. Just water. He poured 2 glasses and handed one to her. This detective, was he really sent by your brother? Chloe clutched the glass, spinning a lie. Yes, my brother doesn't approve of my boyfriend. He wants to drag me back home. Boyfriend? Ethan raised an eyebrow. A guy from college, Chloe said, pressing on. My brother doesn't think he's good enough for our family. Ethan's expression turned strange. Sounds like your brother is a real tyrant. He is. A total tyrant. Chloe nodded, thinking her father would have an aneurysm if he heard this. Ethan stood up. I'm going to check the square. Lock the door behind me. After he left, Chloe let out a long breath and looked around. The drafting table was covered in beautiful, detailed sketches of landscapes around Clear Creek. She hadn't known Ethan was such a talented artist. Curiosity got the better of her, and she crept up the creaking staircase. The bedroom was surprisingly neat. A single bed, a desk, and a closet. On the desk were several architecture books and a laptop. On the nightstand was a picture frame. Chloe picked it up and almost dropped it. It was her and Ethan's engagement photo. In the picture, she was wearing a pink dress, her smile strained. Ethan, beside her, looked perfectly calm. Why do you still have this? Her heart pounded. Stranger still, the frame was slightly worn at the edges, as if it were handled often. She heard the front door open downstairs and quickly put the frame back, tiptoeing down the stairs. How is it? She asked as Ethan walked in. He's gone, Ethan said, taking off his jacket. But he said he'd keep looking. He's going to check the inns and motels tomorrow. Chloe twisted her hands together. Then I need to find another place to stay. You can stay here, Ethan said. There's a guest room upstairs. Chloe's eyes widened. Stay here with you. I'll sleep in the studio, he said, pointing to a folded cot near the drafting table. It's safe here, and besides. He paused. I think we have a lot to talk about. Chloe's throat felt tight. Had he figured something out? Like what? Like? Ethan took a step closer. Why'd you been pretending not to know me? The air in the room seemed to crackle. Chloe could hear the frantic beating of her own heart. I don't know what you're talking about. Chloe, he said her name softly. We both know who we are. Her legs gave out, and she sank into a chair. The charade was over. When did you recognize me? The first moment I saw you, Ethan said, leaning against the table. You're a terrible actress, Lynn Smith. Chloe wanted to argue, but instead, she laughed. It was all so absurd. They had been like 2 bad actors in a play with no audience. Then why did you play along? Ethan shrugged. You seem to be having so much fun. I didn't have the heart to ruin it. You're an ass, Chloe said, but there was no real anger in her voice. Ethan grinned. Takes one to know one, Miss Runaway Bride. Their eyes met, and they both started laughing. The tension that had been building for days finally broke, and Chloe realized she'd been holding her breath the entire time. So, she took a deep breath. Are you really here just to get away from it all? Partly, he said, pouring her another glass of water. But mostly, I came to find you. Chloe nearly choked. Find me? Why? A lot of reasons, he said, his expression turning serious. The main one being, I wanted to know why you ran. Chloe looked down at her glass. I thought it was obvious. I don't want an arranged marriage. But you never even gave me a chance to get to know you, he said softly. You just wrote me off. She had no response. He was right. From the very beginning, she had labeled him as her father's puppet, never once considering that he might be his own person. And you, she countered. Why did you sell the condo? Because it was your father's money, Ethan said simply. I don't want to owe him anything. Chloe looked up surprised. My mother said it was her personal money. On the surface, Ethan scoffed. In reality, it was your father's way of laundering it through her to me as a means of control. Flashes of memory went through Chloe's mind. Her father's constant criticism of Ethan, her mother's hesitant expressions, Ethan's silence at family gatherings. She suddenly realized this marriage was far more complicated than she had ever imagined. So, you didn't leave because you were heartbroken? Ethan laughed. Heartbroken, of course, but not because I lost a marriage. It was because you treated me like I was one of your father's cronies. A sharp pain went through Chloe's chest. She had always seen herself as the sole victim, never once considering Ethan's feelings. I'm sorry, she whispered. He shook his head. Don't be. We were both wrong. He looked out the window. It's getting dark. You should stay here tonight. We can figure things out in the morning. Chloe nodded, then remembered something. That investigator. Was he really looking for me? Yes. Ethan's expression was serious. Sent by your father. But don't worry. I've already sent him on a wild goose chase. Ow! Ethan smiled mysteriously. I told him Lynn Smith has an identical twin sister who works in the next town over. Chloe couldn't help but laugh again. It was ridiculous, but somehow being with Ethan made even being on the run seem less terrifying. Are you hungry? He asked. I can make some pasta. You cook. A basic survival skill, he said, walking to the kitchenette. Architects work late. Can't live on takeout. Chloe watched him go, realizing she had never truly known this man. In New York, he was Richard Davis's future son-in-law. In Clear Creek, he was just Alex Carter, a man who could fix pipes, inspect coffee mugs, and cook pasta. And she was starting to think she liked this version of him a lot more. 5, the early morning sun streamed through the thin curtains, and Chloe opened her eyes, momentarily disoriented. She was in the guest room of Ethan's studio, the mattress as hard as a rock, the pillows smelling faintly of laundry detergent. She fumbled for her phone. A barrage of 23 texts from Maya lit up the screen. Are you insane? Staying with him? I checked the records. Ethan Cole signed a 3-year lease on that building. Chloe, are you still alive? Chloe sighed and texted back. Alive. Not murdered. Not seduced. Relax. Just as she hit send, she heard the clatter of pots and pans from downstairs, followed by a muffled, damn it. She couldn't help but smile as she tiptoed down the stairs. Ethan stood with his back to her in the small kitchen, wearing a white t-shirt and jeans, his hair a mess. He was frantically trying to flip something in a frying pan. Was it a lump of charcoal? Are you trying to murder our breakfast? Chloe asked, leaning against the doorframe. Ethan spun around, nearly launching the pan across the room. You're awake. He held up the spatula, awkwardly. I was trying to make an omelet. That's an omelet? Chloe peered into the pan at the blackened mass. I thought you were practicing alchemy. The tips of Ethan's ears turned red. I'm usually better with pasta. Chloe laughed and took the spatula from him. Move over, Master Chef. She turned off the heat and scraped the omelet into the trash. Do you have any flour? Flour. Ethan blinked blankly. I think. So. 10 minutes later, Chloe had unearthed flour, eggs, and half a package of hot dog from the Sparse pantry. Ethan stood by like a guilty schoolboy, occasionally handing her a bowl or a spice jar. You know how to cook? He asked. Survival skill. She mimicked his tone from the night before. Even rich girls take cooking classes. She expertly whisked eggs and mixed batter. Though my father's intention was for me to learn how to bake pastries to impress my future in-laws. Ethan chuckled. Another one of Richard Davis's plans down the drain. Chloe poured the batter into the hot pan, the savory aroma quickly filling the kitchen. Do you do that often? Do what? Act obedient on the surface, but secretly rebel. She flipped the golden brown pancake, playing the good little boy in front of my dad, when in reality what? Ethan stepped closer, his breath warm on her ear. I'm a bad boy. Her hand trembled, and she nearly botched the flip. He smelled of fresh aftershave and morning sun, a scent that uncomfortably reminded her of their accidental embrace in the rainy alley. "Pancakes are ready," she said, trying to sound nonchalant as she slid them onto a plate, ignoring the heat rising in her cheeks. "Try one." Ethan took the plate, and his eyes lit up after the first bite. "This is amazing." "Of course it is," she said, tilting her chin up proudly. A frantic knocking at the door cut her off. Ethan frowned and went to answer it. "Mr. Henderson stood on the doorstep, flushed and out of breath. "Alex, Lynn, thank God you're both here," he panted. "It's an emergency." Chloe and Ethan exchanged a look. "What's wrong?" "The Maple Festival. The bake-off is this afternoon." Henderson waved a flyer in the air. "Old man Hemlock came down with appendicitis, and his wife got food poisoning. Our town has no one to compete." Chloe was completely lost. "What bake-off?" "The annual Clear Creek Maple Festival bake-off." Henderson was practically hopping with anxiety. "We've won for 3 years straight. If we don't compete this year, those smug jerks from Pine Ridge will never let us hear the end of it." Ethan looked even more confused than Chloe. So you two have to represent Clear Creek." Henderson grabbed both their hands. "You're the only folks from out of town. You must have sophisticated tastes. You're our only hope." Chloe opened her mouth to refuse, but Henderson's eyes were filled with tears. "The grand prize is $5,000. If you win, it's all yours." Ethan raised an eyebrow at Chloe. "Need the cash, Miss Runaway Bride." "Shut up," she shot back, then turned to Henderson. "What are the rules?" An hour later, Chloe and Ethan were standing on a makeshift stage in the town square, facing 100 expectant faces, each holding a slip of paper with the contest rules. 1 hour, 3 dishes using the provided ingredients. Chloe, read aloud. "The judges will score based on creativity, taste, and couples chemistry." "What the hell?" Ethan leaned over to read her paper. The host, the town's elementary school principal, explained into the microphone, "We've added a special couples category this year to spice things up." "But we're not." Chloe started to protest, but Ethan clamped a hand over her mouth. "Don't blow our cover," he whispered in her ear. "There are strangers in the crowd. Could be the PI." Chloe followed his gaze and saw a man in a black trench coat at the edge of the crowd, taking pictures with his phone. She immediately shut her mouth and forced a smile at the host. "All right, let the bake-off begin," the principal announced, and 5 other couples rushed to the ingredient tables. Ethan grabbed Chloe's arm. "What's the plan?" "You chop, I cook," she said quickly. 3 courses, appetizer, main, dessert. "Got it." The ingredients were basic: common vegetables, some meat, eggs, flour, and spices. Chloe quickly grabbed what she needed, while Ethan, like a professional chef, astutely added a few key items she had overlooked. Back at their station, Ethan started prepping the ingredients without a word. Chloe glanced at his knife skills. Clean, precise, the carrots julienned as uniformly as if done by machine. "Did they teach you knife skills in cooking class, too?" she whispered. "Architectural model making," he replied without looking up. "Precision down to the millimeter." The appetizer was Chloe's idea: prosciutto-wrapped asparagus with a balsamic glaze. While she worked on the sauce, Ethan prepped the vegetables. They worked in perfect sync, almost without speaking. Halfway through, the host shouted. For the main course, Chloe had planned on pan-seared chicken, but when she turned to get the chicken breasts, the plate was empty. "Where's the chicken?" she asked, panicking. Ethan looked up innocently. "You told me to prep it, so I cubed it. All of it. That was for all 3 courses." "You weren't specific," he shrugged. "Now what?" Chloe took a deep breath, surveying their remaining ingredients. "Change of plans. We'll mince the chicken. Make meatballs." "Meatballs with what?" "With that." Chloe pointed to a basket of wild greens the other contestants had ignored. "Sautéed fiddlehead ferns." Ethan raised an eyebrow. "You know what those are? My grandmother lived in the countryside." She explained briefly, starting to chop the chicken. "Quick, mince some ginger for me." With 10 minutes left, dessert became a problem. They had plenty of flour and eggs, but all the sugar had been used by the other teams. "A savory dessert," Ethan suggested. Chloe shook her head. "The judges are all old-timers. They won't go for it." Then, she had a flash of inspiration. "Maple syrup. I saw a jug of it at the ingredient station." Ethan immediately ran to grab it. Chloe quickly mixed a simple batter for crepes. while Ethan made a quick fruit compote with the syrup and some leftover berries. 1 minute remaining. Chloe frantically plated the crepes as Ethan drizzled the warm maple berry sauce over them and garnished with a sprig of mint. Time's up. They both let out a sigh of relief, looking at their 3 dishes. They weren't as fancy as some of the others, but they smelled incredible. The 3 judges, all senior citizens from the town, tasted each dish and then conferred in hushed tones. Chloe was so nervous she was digging her nails into Ethan's arm. And the winner is... The principal opened the envelope, representing Clear Creek, Alex Carter, and Lynn Smith. Chloe's eyes widened. We won. The crowd erupted in applause. Ethan seemed just as surprised, but he quickly recovered, scooping Chloe up and spinning her around. She let out a yelp, instinctively wrapping her arms around his neck. Put me down, she hissed in his ear. Play along. The PI is watching, he whispered back, a mischievous grin on his face. After accepting their certificate and the envelope with $5,000 in cash, they were mobbed by the enthusiastic townspeople. Mr. Henderson excitedly announced a celebration at the coffee shop that night, and everyone was invited. We need to find a way to slip out, Chloe whispered to Ethan. That PI has been following us all day. Ethan nodded. We'll play it by ear tonight. But their plan to play it by ear was quickly derailed by Mr. Henderson's specially concocted Champions cocktail. By 8 o'clock, the coffee shop was packed, and Ethan had been plied with at least 5 glasses of a mysteriously colored beverage. His eyes were starting to glaze over. Is he always such a lightweight? Chloe asked Henderson. Beats me. Never seen him drink before, Henderson said, pouring another glass. Come on, Alex, one more for the road. Ethan waved his hand dismissively and nearly slid off his stool. Chloe quickly steadied him. That's enough. He can't have any more. Ooh, protective are we. Henderson winked. All right. You 2 lovebirds should get some rest. It was late when Chloe finally managed to haul Ethan out of the coffee shop. He was a dead weight, leaning heavily on her. You look so lean. How are you so heavy? She panted, dragging him toward his studio. Ethan suddenly lifted his head, his eyes unfocused. Chloe, what? You're beautiful, he said with a goofy grin, before his head lolled onto her shoulder. Chloe rolled her eyes and continued her struggle. In the moonlight, their shadows stretched out before them, making them look like a single, lurching creature. Back at the studio, it took all her strength to get him up the stairs and onto the bed. She was about to leave when he grabbed her wrist. Don't go. Let go, you're drunk. I'm not drunk. He frowned, trying to focus on her. I'm an architect. Chloe couldn't help but laugh. Right? A very distinguished architect. Ethan suddenly sat up, his expression surprisingly serious. Chloe, I have to tell you a secret. What secret? The money from the condo. He whispered conspiratorially. It's all in a Swiss bank account. Chloe raised an eyebrow. Really? He nodded, the movement so forceful he almost fell off the bed. Your dad. He thinks I just ran off with the money. But really, I just didn't want to use his dirty money. Her heart started to beat faster. Why are you telling me this? Because. He tilted his head, his eyes suddenly clear for a moment. I'm in love with you. Then, like a robot that had been powered down, he fell back onto the bed and started snoring. Chloe stood there completely stunned. What did he just say? He loved her? Was it the truth, or just the ramblings of a drunk? She shook her head, deciding not to take a drunkard's words to heart. After covering him with a blanket, she noticed his phone had slipped out of his pocket. She picked it up to place it on the nightstand, but her thumb accidentally hit the power button. The screen lit up, and Chloe gasped. The lock screen was a picture of her working at the coffee shop. It was a candid shot, but it was surprisingly flattering. What the? She tried to unlock it, but it required a passcode. She hesitated, then typed in Ethan's birthday. Incorrect. She thought for a moment, then typed in her own birthday. The screen unlocked. Creeper, she muttered, but curiosity got the better of her. The photo gallery was mostly filled with architectural photos and design sketches, but there was one locked folder titled Project Nightingale. Chloe bit her lip and typed in her birthday again. It opened. The folder was filled with pictures of her. From the day she ran away, at the train station, at the inn, in the coffee shop, at the library. There was even a photo of her talking to Maya outside the bathhouse. Ethan! She was so angry she wanted to smash the phone on his head, but then she noticed the timestamp on the oldest photo. It was taken 3 months before their engagement. That's impossible. She scrolled through the pictures, her heart pounding. The locations were all over New York City, malls, restaurants, the gym she frequented, her favorite nail salon. All candid shots taken without her knowledge. The strangest part was that the photos were clearly not all taken by the same person. The angles and quality varied wildly. Chloe put the phone down and stared at the sleeping Ethan for a long time. She thought she had orchestrated the perfect escape, but she had been under surveillance from the very beginning. Who was this man, really? And why had he done this? She tiptoed downstairs and curled up on the studio couch, where she spent a restless night. Her dreams were filled with Ethan's eyes, sober, drunk, loving, calculating, watching her from every corner with nowhere to run. The next morning, she was awakened by footsteps from upstairs. She rubbed her eyes and saw Ethan coming down the stairs, clutching his head, his face pale. "Morning," he said hoarsely. "How did I end up upstairs? You don't remember?" Chloe asked cautiously. He nodded miserably. "The last thing I remember is Henderson's third cocktail." He looked at her. I didn't say anything weird, did I?" Chloe stared into his eyes. "You said you put the money from the condo in a Swiss bank account." His hand visibly flinched, but his expression remained neutral. "You believe the ramblings of a drunk. You also said you were in love with me." This time, Ethan froze completely, his ears turning a bright, telltale red. I, Chloe decided to go for the kill. "And I also saw the pictures on your phone. You psycho stalker." The color drained from Ethan's face. He opened his mouth, then closed it, slumping onto the stairs in defeat. "I can explain." "I'm listening," she said, crossing her arms. Ethan took a deep breath. "Those pictures. I didn't take all of them." "Oh, you have an accomplice." "It was a private investigator," he said, rubbing his temples. "Hired by your father." Chloe frowned. "What?" "From the day we were first introduced, your father had us followed," he said with a wry smile. "I just hacked into the PI's cloud storage and copied the photos." "Why?" "Because." He looked up at her, his expression unreadable. "I want to know the real you. Not the perfect heiress at the galas, but the everyday Chloe." Her heart skipped a beat. "Then why did you keep them?" Instead of answering directly, he asked softly, "Do you really not remember the first time we met?" Chloe was taken aback. She had always assumed their first meeting was at the dinner arranged by her father. 3 years ago, at the Columbia School of Architecture graduate exhibition, he said softly. "You were there representing a corporate sponsor. You were wearing a red dress, and you almost slipped by the fountain. I caught you." She vaguely recalled the incident, but the memory was fuzzy. And he smiled faintly. "I never forgot you. Later, when your father approached me about being introduced to his daughter, I saw it was you in the photo, and I agreed." She didn't know whether to be shocked or moved. "So you really do like me?" Ethan stood up and walked over to her. "Things said while drunk don't count." He gently touched her cheek. "When I'm ready to tell you for real, you'll know." Chloe slapped his hand away. "Don't change the subject. Those photos, I'll delete them." "And the PI, already taken care of," he said, walking to the kitchen. "I gave him the $5,000 from the bake-off yesterday. He promised to tell your father there's no trace of Chloe Davis's here." Chloe's eyes widened. "You used our prize money to bribe the PI." "Our prize money?" He raised an eyebrow. "I thought that was payment for my services." Someone seemed to be enjoying being swept off her feet yesterday. Chloe grabbed a throw pillow from the couch and threw it at him. "Go to hell, Ethan." He caught it, laughing, his eyes impossibly warm. Chloe suddenly realized that their little game of cat and mouse had fundamentally changed. And to her surprise, she couldn't wait to see what happened next. 6 Lynn Smith, got a letter for you." Chloe looked up from the cup she was cleaning to see the town mailman, old Mr. Gable, standing in the doorway of the coffee shop, waving a manila envelope. She wiped her hands and took it from him, immediately recognizing the gold-embossed Davis Corp. wax seal, her father's preferred method for formal correspondence. "Thanks," she said, forcing a smile as her heart began to pound. "Mr." Gable lingered, looking at her curiously. "You know someone at Davis Corp? That's a big-shot company in New York." "A distant relative," Chloe said, stuffing the envelope into her apron pocket. "Please don't mention it to anyone." He made a zipping motion across his lips and left with a cheerful wave. Chloe glanced around. Ethan wasn't there. He'd gone to the next town over for building supplies. Only Mr. Henderson and two regulars were in the shop, and no one had noticed the exchange. She slipped in the back room, locked the door, and opened the envelope with trembling hands. Inside was a single sheet of heavy cardstock, bearing her father's sharp, familiar handwriting. Chloe, this is your final chance. Return home within 1 week to meet with Julian Vance. If you refuse, you will be permanently disowned. And don't think I can't find you. My investigator has confirmed you are in Clear Creek. Your father, tucked behind the note, was a dossier on Julian Vance, 28, heir to Vance Real Estate, a Cambridge graduate. The man in the photo wore a tailored suit and a smile so perfect it looked like it had been measured with a ruler. Chloe's hand shook so badly she could barely hold the paper. How had her father found her? Hadn't the PI been paid off? Had Ethan lied to her? She pulled out her phone, her thumb hovering over Ethan's number when the back door burst open. Chloe hastily hid the letter behind her back as Maya rushed in. Chloe, it's bad. Maya grabbed her by the shoulders. Your dad sent people to my house. What? 2 guys in suits from the Davis Corp. Legal department. Maya said, her face pale. They asked my parents if they knew where you were and threatened to sue me for aiding a kidnapping. A knot of ice formed in Chloe's stomach. Her father was playing for keeps. What did your parents say? That they didn't know, obviously. Maya rolled her eyes. But my mom is freaking out. She told me to find you and tell you to. Tell me to what? To get lost and stop dragging our family into your mess. Maya finished in a whisper. Chloe felt like she'd been punched in the gut. She knew Maya's mother had never been her biggest fan, but she never expected to be cast aside so bluntly. I'm so sorry, Maya. I've caused you so much trouble, she said quietly. I'll leave Clear Creek right away. And go where? I don't know. As far away as possible. Chloe untied her apron. Can you tell Mr. Henderson I had a family emergency? Maya grabbed her wrist. Wait, aren't you going to tell Ethan? Chloe bit her lip. He might be the one who told my dad. No way, Maya said firmly. I did some digging. Ethan and your dad are not on the same team. In fact, they have a history. Chloe frowned. What kind of history? I'm not sure, but my friend's cousin who works at Davis Corp said that Ethan once publicly opposed one of your dad's real estate projects. They had a huge argument in a board meeting. That was news to Chloe. She'd always assumed Ethan was her father's yes man. Anyway, I think you can trust him, Maya said, pulling out her wallet and pressing a wad of cash into Chloe's hand. Here, just in case. Chloe's eyes welled up. Maya, stop it, Maya said, patting her cheek. Now hurry up and pack. I'll keep watch. Chloe nodded. Just as she turned to leave, the back door opened again. It was Ethan, carrying a bag from a hardware store, a light sheen of sweat on his forehead. What are you two plotting? He asked, raising an eyebrow at their tense expressions. Maya and Chloe exchanged a look. Just tell him, Maya finally said. I'll stand guard outside. After Maya left, Ethan locked the door and turned to Chloe. What's happened? Silently, Chloe handed him the letter from her father. He read it quickly, his expression growing darker with each word. The PI sold us out. Ethan shook his head. Not possible. I ran a background check on him. He's too scared of the consequences. Then how did my dad find me? It might not be that he found you, Ethan said, pulling out his phone and showing her an email. Look at this. Chloe took the phone. It was a financial news alert, Davis Corp. Facing liquidity crisis, multiple projects at risk of halting. The date was from 3 days ago. I don't understand. Your father isn't desperate to find his daughter. He's desperate for a bailout, Ethan explained calmly. Vance Real Estate can give him the capital he needs, which is why he's so desperate to force you into this marriage. A horrible thought occurred to Chloe. He only agreed to us calling off our engagement because he already had this lined up, didn't he? Ethan's silence was all the confirmation she needed. That bastard. Chloe slammed her fist on the counter. I'm just a bargaining chip to him. Ethan gently placed a hand on her shoulder. Calm down. Anger won't solve anything. Then what will? She snapped, shrugging off his hand. Running away again? Fine. I'll pack my bags. Again, Ethan sighed. Where to this time? Montana. Mexico. I don't know. Anywhere as far away from him as possible. Ethan suddenly laughed. You haven't changed at all. What's that supposed to mean? Your first instinct is always to run, he said, shaking his head. You ran from our wedding, and now you want to run from the country. What's next, Mars? Chloe was speechless. He was right. All she ever did was run. But what other choice did she have? I have a suggestion, Ethan said suddenly. What? A paper marriage. Chloe stared at him. Excuse me. We get legally married, but live separate lives, he said, his tone as casual as if he were discussing the weather. That way, your father can't force you to marry someone else, and I can protect the money from the condo sale from being clawed back. Warning bells went off in Chloe's head. You're just trying to protect your money? Partly, he admitted freely, but mostly, I'm trying to help you. No, thanks, she said with a cold smile. I'd rather move to a deserted island. Ethan seemed to have expected this. Do you have a better plan? She opened her mouth, but no words came out. She didn't. Think about it, he said, pocketing his phone. You don't have to decide right now. Just then, Mr. Henderson's voice came from the front. Lynn, someone's here to see you. Chloe and Ethan both tensed. Who is it? Chloe called through the door. Says she's your aunt. Chloe and Ethan exchanged a puzzled look. She didn't have an aunt. Ethan made a gesture for her to hide and went out himself. Chloe pressed her ear to the door and heard a familiar female voice. Where's Chloe? I'm her mother. Chloe's legs went weak and she almost collapsed. Her mother. Here, in Clear Creek. Forgetting to hide, she threw the door open and ran out. In the corner of the coffee shop, a woman in sunglasses and a wide-brimmed hat was looking around anxiously. Despite the disguise, Chloe immediately recognized her mother's elegant silhouette. Mom! The woman turned and pulled Chloe into a hug. Thank God. Mr. Henderson discreetly retreated to the kitchen, and Maya stood guard by the door. Ethan placed a cup of tea on the table and then quietly stepped away. How did you find me? Chloe whispered. Your father had the package Maya sent you tracked, her mother said, taking off her sunglasses. Her eyes were red and swollen. Chloe, you have to come home with me. Never. Chloe pulled away. I'm not marrying some Julian Vance. It's not about the marriage, her mother hissed. It's about saving your father. The company is about to go bankrupt. We have creditors camped out on our lawn. Chloe looked at Ethan, shocked. He seemed just as surprised. The situation is much worse than what's being reported, her mother said, dabbing at her eyes. Your father has already mortgaged the house and all our assets. If we don't get the capital from the Vances. So he's selling his daughter? Chloe's voice trembled. It's not like that, Her mother's eyes landed on Ethan, and she lowered her voice suspiciously. Who is this? Alex Carter, Chloe answered before Ethan could. My boyfriend. Ethan raised an eyebrow, but didn't contradict her. Her mother's expression shifted from surprise to suspicion, finally settling on a complex understanding. I see. She turned to Ethan. Young man, would you mind giving us a moment alone? Ethan nodded and gestured for Maya to follow him out of the coffee shop. Once the door was closed, her mother grabbed Chloe's hand. Are you serious with this? Alex, of course, Chloe said, steeling herself. We're getting married. Don't be ridiculous, her mother snapped. Do you know anything about him? His family? What he does for a living? He's an architect. He has his own firm, Chloe said, the lie coming more easily now. And we're in love. Her mother stared at her for a long moment, then smiled faintly. Chloe, darling, your right eye twitches when you lie. It has since you were a little girl. Chloe was speechless. Listen to me, her mother sighed. I'm not here to drag you home. I'm here to warn you. Warn me. Your father has filed a court order. If you don't return within a week, he's going to have you declared mentally incompetent and be granted legal guardianship over you. She pulled a document from her purse. Once that happens, he can legally have you committed until you agree to the marriage. The room started to spin. Her own father would do that. Why are you telling me this? Because I'm your mother, she said, stroking Chloe's cheek. I know you're not happy. And that Ethan Cole. He's no saint, but he's better than Julian Vance. Chloe's eyes widened. You know that Alex is Ethan? Of course, her mother smiled. Who do you think made sure the deed to the Sterling Residences condo was in his name only? The pieces started to click into place in Chloe's mind. Her mother's subtle defense of Ethan, her father's strange comments about the condo, Ethan's claim that it was dirty money. You two, you worked together to deceive my dad. Not deceive. Protect. Her mother corrected, standing up. Your father has become more and more paranoid over the years. I had to create a safety net for myself. She checked her watch. I have to go. My driver is waiting. Ma. Chloe didn't know what to say. You have 1 week, Chloe, her mother said, putting her sunglasses back on. Either you go back and marry Julian Vance, or... She glanced meaningfully toward the door. You find a better solution. After her mother left, Chloe sat in a daze. The door opened quietly, and Ethan walked back in. How did it go? He asked. Chloe robotically repeated her mother's warning. When she finished, Ethan's expression was unnervingly calm. So, he summarized, you have 1 week to decide whether to go home and get married or enter into a paper marriage with me. That's not a choice, she said, exasperated. Both options are terrible. To her surprise, Ethan smiled. There's a third option. What? A real marriage. Chloe nearly fell off her chair. Are you crazy? It's more reliable than a fake one, he shrugged. At least we wouldn't have to pretend to be in love. But we're not in love. Ethan didn't argue, just looked at her quietly. For the first time, Chloe wasn't entirely sure that was true. At least, not on her part. I need some time to think, she finally said. He nodded. What do you want for dinner? I'll go get the ingredients. Chloe stared at him, bewildered. In the face of this massive crisis, he was thinking about dinner. Whatever. Whatever is not on the menu, he insisted. She suddenly lost her temper. Can you be serious for 1 second? We are talking about my entire future. And people have to eat, he said calmly. The more critical the situation, the more important it is to maintain a routine. I learned that in the Army. Chloe's eyes widened. You were in the Army? 2 years after college, he said dismissively. So dinner? Barbecue ribs. She answered automatically, then shook her head. No, we were talking about barbecue ribs, roasted vegetables, and a salad it is, Ethan said, already walking to the door. I'll go to the market. You get some rest. Chloe watched him go, feeling an infuriating mix of wanting to punch him and wanting to hug him. How could he be so calm and focused on a menu at a time like this? After Ethan left, Maya slipped back in. So, she asked eagerly. Chloe quickly explained the situation. Maya's eyes grew wide. So you either have to marry some random guy or marry Ethan. That's the easiest choice in the world. Easy. Of course you choose Ethan. Maya slapped the table. He's handsome, he can cook, and he's willing to go up against Richard Davis for you. Chloe buried her face in her hands. Maya, this isn't a beauty pageant. Well, do you like him? Chloe was silent. Did she like him? She hated his arrogance, his infuriating calm, his ability to always be 1 step ahead. But it was those very qualities that gave her a strange sense of security in the middle of this crisis. I don't know, she finally admitted. Then take a chance, Maya said firmly. It's better than going back to marry what's his name. Just then, the sky outside darkened, and a sudden flash of lightning was followed by a clap of thunder. Rain began to pour down in sheets. Maya looked out the window. Crap, I have to go, or I'll miss the last bus back. She gave Chloe a quick hug. Whatever you decide, I support you. But just remember, she pointed out the window at Ethan, who was running back in the downpour. That man is getting soaked just to get the ingredients for your barbecue ribs. After Maya left, Ethan came in, dripping wet. Severe storm warning. The whole town might lose power. As if on cue, the lights in the coffee shop flickered and died. In the darkness, the only light came from the occasional flashes of lightning. Where's Mr. Henderson? Chloe asked. Checking the circuit breaker, Ethan said, setting down his grocery bag in the dark. We should get back to the studio. It's not safe here. Just then, there was a loud crash from above, followed by Henderson's panicked shout. The roof is leaking. Lynn, get the tarps and buckets from the storage shed. Chloe fumbled for her phone and turned on the flashlight. Ethan, who had already taken off his wet jacket, took the phone from her. I'll go to the shed. You help Henderson. I'm coming with you, she insisted. You don't know where anything is. They ran through the rain to the small storage shed in the backyard. Just as they pushed the door open, a gust of wind slammed it shut behind them. The shed was cluttered with junk. As Chloe located the tarps and buckets, she heard an ominous creaking sound from the roof. Look out, Ethan yelled, pulling her back just as a large section of the ceiling collapsed, landing exactly where she had been standing. Her heart was beating so fast it felt like it would burst from her chest. Ethan's arms were wrapped tightly around her, their bodies pressed together in the dark. "Thank you," she whispered. He didn't let go. "Chloe, about the marriage thing. Now is not the time to talk about that." She tried to pull away. "It's the perfect time," he said, his voice firm over the roar of the storm. "Listen, I don't care if it's real or fake, but I know one thing. I will not let you go back to that man." Chloe looked up at him. A flash of lightning illuminated his face, and his eyes were blazing with an intensity that almost frightened her. "Why?" she whispered. "Because." He took a deep breath. "Because I'm damn in love with you. I've been since the first time I saw you at that exhibition 3 years ago." The world seemed to stop. The rain, the thunder, Henderson's distant shouts. It all faded away, leaving only the sound of Ethan's breathing and the deafening roar of her own heart. You never said anything." "I've said it 1,000,000 times," he said with a wry smile. "In my own way. Fixing your phone, going to those boring galas with you, even letting you run away from our wedding." Chloe thought of the photos, the record of her every move on his phone. It wasn't surveillance, it was an obsession. "So the condo. That was my declaration of war against your father," he admitted. "I knew it was his money, so I sold it to prove that I wasn't a puppet he could control." Suddenly, so many things made sense. Why Ethan had always been so distant with her father, why her mother had secretly helped him, why he had liquidated the property the moment she was gone. "You used me," she said softly. "At first, yes," he admitted without hesitation. But then, another flash of lightning lit the sincerity in his eyes. "Then I realized that you and I are the same. We're both fighting back, just in different ways. You run, and I hide in plain sight." She didn't know how to respond. His words were like a mirror, reflecting a truth about herself she had never wanted to admit. She was always running, from her family, from responsibility, from her own feelings. "We should get back," she finally said, her voice softer than she intended. Ethan released her, but held her gaze. "Consider my proposal. A real marriage, not a fake one." She didn't say yes, but she didn't say no. She picked up the tarp and buckets and ran back into the storm. Ethan followed close behind, the two of them sprinting through the deluge like a pair of fugitives escaping the end of the world. Back in a coffee shop, Henderson was struggling to manage the leaks. The three of them worked together to set up the tarps and buckets, but the rain was too heavy, and the first floor was already beginning to flood. "You can't stay here tonight," Henderson said, looking grim. "Lynn, you'll have to stay with Alex." Chloe started to object, but Ethan had already grabbed her bag. "Let's go." The water is rising. The street outside had turned into a shallow river. They waded through the water back to the studio, both of them soaked to the bone. Ethan found dry towels and a change of clothes for her. "You take a shower first. I'll make some ginger tea." Chloe stood under the hot water, letting it wash away the chill from her body and the chaos from her mind. Ethan's confession had shattered all her defenses. He loved her. For 3 years, it was insane. And yet, it explained everything. She put on the clothes he gave her, an oversized t-shirt and sweatpants, and went back downstairs. The studio was lit by candles, and Ethan was heating something on a small camping stove. The warm, yellow light softened the sharp angles of his face. "Ginger tea," he said, handing her a steaming mug, to ward off a cold. She took the mug, their fingers brushing for a brief moment. She sipped the spicy, sweet liquid, feeling a warmth spread through her. "Ethan," she said, putting the mug down and looking him in the eye, "if we got married, a real marriage, would you respect my choices?" His expression turned serious. "What choices? Like, if I didn't want to have kids right away, or if I wanted to keep working?" "Of course," he said without hesitation. "You would be my wife, not my property." Her heart sped up. "And our finances?" "Separate, with a joint account for shared expenses," he answered smoothly, as if he had thought about this for a long time. "You can continue to be Lynn Smith for as long as you want, until you're ready to be Chloe Davis again." She was stunned by his thoroughness. "You've thought all of this through." "I've been thinking about it since the day you ran away," he said with a sad smile. The plan just kept changing. The rain outside was starting to subside, but the candlelight still danced on the walls, mirroring their own turbulent emotions. Chloe looked at Ethan, his features softened by the flickering light, and suddenly realized that what she had been looking for all along might be this man, someone who knew everything about her, and still chose to stay. I need to think about it, she finally said. He nodded and gestured to the stairs. You take the bed. I'll sleep on the couch. As she was about to go upstairs, she turned back. Ethan, would you regret it? He blew out the last candle, and in the darkness, his voice was startlingly clear. The only thing I regret in my life, Chloe, is not stopping you from running away in the first place. Chloe's eyes stung with tears in the darkness as she turned and went upstairs. That night, the storm washed over Clear Creek, and with it, the wall she had spent years building around her heart. 7. The morning sun cut through a gap in the curtains, and Chloe opened her eyes, momentarily forgetting where she was. She was in Ethan's guest bed, wearing his t-shirt, the memory of last night's storm, ginger tea, and marriage proposal still fresh. She sat up abruptly, her hair a tangled mess. Had Ethan really proposed? A real marriage? Was she dreaming? The smell of coffee and the sound of a spatula hitting a pan drifted up from downstairs. Chloe ran a hand through her hair and tiptoed down the stairs. Ethan stood with his back to her in the small kitchen, frying an egg. He was wearing gray sweatpants and a white tank top, the muscles in his back shifting as he cooked. Morning, Chloe said, leaning against the doorframe, her voice raspy. Ethan turned, a faint smile on his lips. Sleep well. Okay, she said, taking the mug of coffee he offered, carefully avoiding his eyes. About last night. Have you made a decision? He asked, sliding the egg onto a plate, his tone as casual as if they were discussing the weather. Chloe stared into her coffee. I need more information. Such as, if we got married, where would we live? She looked up. You can't stay in Clear Creek forever. Ethan placed a plate of toast on the small table. I have a job offer in Singapore. I can accept it any time. Singapore? Her eyes widened. When did you apply for that? 6 months ago, he said, sitting down. The plan was to move there with you after the wedding. A pang of guilt hit her. Ethan had had a whole plan for their future, a new life completely independent of her father. And she had ruined it with her escape. So, what now? The plan hasn't changed, he said, taking a bite of toast. It's just shifted from a honeymoon to an escape. Chloe couldn't help but smile. Sound like a crime movie. Life is a badly written crime movie, Ethan said, sipping his coffee. And we're both the victims and the criminals. She was about to respond when a sharp, insistent knocking rattled the front door. Ethan frowned, got up, and peered through the peephole. His face immediately became a mask of grim resolve. What is it? Chloe whispered. He turned to her. Your father is here. The fork slipped from Chloe's hand and clattered onto her plate. What? He has 4 bodyguards with him, Ethan said, his voice unervingly calm. The back door is probably covered, too. Chloe jumped to her feet, looking around wildly. We have to run. There's nowhere to run, Ethan said, grabbing her wrist. Listen to me. No matter what happens, stick to the plan. What plan? The door was kicked open with a splintering crash. Richard Davis stood in the doorway, flanked by 4 massive men in black suits. He looked older than she remembered, with more gray at his temples, but the ruthless glint in his eyes was unchanged. Found you, he said, his voice like ice. Chloe instinctively shrank behind Ethan, a move that seemed to enrage her father. He strode into the room, and one of the guards shut the door behind him. Chloe, get your things. You're coming home, her father commanded. I'm not going back, she said, forcing herself to meet his gaze. I won't marry Julian Vance. Richard Davis laughed, a cold, humorless sound. You don't have a choice. He turned his attention to Ethan. As for you, son, do you have any idea what the penalty for felony fraud is? Ethan raised an eyebrow. What fraud? Using a marriage proposal to fraudulently obtain real estate, which you then sold, her father said, pulling a folded document from his pocket. The D.S. office has already opened a case. Chloe snatched the paper and scanned it. This is insane. You're the one who forced this marriage. Do you have proof of that? Her father sneered. Because I have engagement party photos, a property gift agreement, and the record of sale from Mr. Cole here. It's an open-end shut case. Chloe was trembling with rage. You're despicable. But Ethan remained calm. Mr. Davis, let's not waste time. What do you want? 2 things, he said, holding up 2 fingers. 1. Chloe comes home and marries Julian. 2. You return the proceeds from the condo sale and sign a non-disclosure agreement. An NDA. Chloe looked at Ethan, confused. A small, dangerous smile played on Ethan's lips. Are you worried I'll talk about Davis Corp's creative accounting? Richard? Her father's face turned purple. What are you talking about? Last year's third quarter report, Ethan said, his voice level. You inflated the progress on the Marina Point development by 30% to secure a $270 million loan from the bank. Should I continue? Chloe stared at Ethan, dumbfounded. How'd he know that? Her father's expression shifted from rage to shock, finally settling into a cold fury. You think anyone will believe you with no proof? I have the original inspector's reports and timestamp photos. Ethan shrugged. Enough for the SEC to launch a full investigation. Richard Davis snatched a water glass from the table and hurled it against the wall. You set me up. Ethan pulled Chloe behind him, shielding her from the flying glass. The feelings mutual. The tense standoff was broken by a commotion outside, followed by a high-pitched female voice. Let me in. I need to see Ethan Cole. Everyone froze. Ethan frowned. Who? The door was pushed open, and a young woman in a tight red dress and flawless makeup stormed in, her belly slightly rounded. Her eyes found Ethan, and she burst into tears. Ethan, I finally found you. She threw herself at him. Our baby. You can't just abandon our baby. Time seemed to stop. Chloe stared at the woman claiming to be pregnant with Ethan's child, her mind buzzing. Sophia. Ethan looked like he'd seen a ghost. You're pregnant. I'm 4 months along, the woman Sophia sobbed. It happened the night you left me. I've been looking for you for so long. A triumphant smirk spread across Richard Davis's face. Well, it seems my daughter was right to run away after all. Your character is truly something to behold, Mr. Cole. Chloe stood rooted to the spot. Was this real? Did Ethan have an ex-girlfriend who was pregnant with his child? What did that make his proposal last night? Ethan pushed Sophia away and turned to Chloe. Chloe, let me explain. Explain what? Her voice trembled. She's your ex-girlfriend? And she's carrying your child? No, we broke up a long time ago, he said, reaching for her hand. That baby can't be mine. Sophia cried even louder. How can you say that? You were drunk that night at my apartment. Richard Davis laughed. Chloe, do you see this man for who he really is now? Chloe pulled her hand away from Ethan, her head spinning. Who was she supposed to believe? Was his proposal last night a lie? Had he been playing her all along? Then, Ethan did something unexpected. He smiled. It was a terrifyingly calm, confident smile. Sophia, he said, turning to the weeping woman. You said you're 4 months pregnant? Yes, she sobbed. It was that rainy night from months ago. Interesting, Ethan said, pulling out his phone. Because 4 months ago, I was in Singapore for an architectural summit. I have the passport stamps to prove it. He brought up a photo on his screen. Here I am with the Singapore Minister of National Development at Marina Bay Sands. The date is the same night you claim I left you. The color drained from Sophia's face. I must have gotten a date wrong. And it gets more interesting, Ethan continued, scrolling through his photos. 3 months ago, you posted a picture of yourself in a bikini on Instagram. Your stomach was as flat as a board. He showed the phone to Chloe. And basic biology tells us that a woman who is 4 months pregnant would be showing. Chloe looked at the picture. He was right. Sophia was showing a small bump now, but 3 months ago, there was no sign of a pregnancy. That's an old picture. Sophia stammered. Is it? Ethan's smile was cold. Then let's go to a hospital and get an ultrasound. We can see exactly how far along you are. Sophia stopped crying, her expression turning venomous. You bastard, Ethan. She whirled on Richard Davis. Mr. Davis, don't let him fool you. He and Chloe aren't in love. He's just using her to get back at you. Her father frowned. What are you talking about? Ethan told me himself that he only got close to Chloe to get revenge for what you did to his father. Sophia shrieked. He has a locked folder on his phone filled with pictures of him stalking her. Chloe looked at Ethan, horrified. That part she knew was true. But Ethan just laughed. She's right, I do have a locked folder, he said, his eyes fixed on Chloe. But it wasn't for revenge. It was because I'm in love with her. Her heart skipped a beat. 3 years ago, at the Columbia Architecture Exhibition, I saw Chloe for the first time. Ethan's voice was clear and steady. She was wearing a red dress, and she almost fell by the fountain. I caught her, and from that moment, I knew she was the one. Chloe's lips trembled. Then why didn't you? Why didn't I ask you out? He finished with a sad smile. Because I was just a broke graduate, and your father was already parading a line of Ivy League heirs in front of you. Richard Davis scoffed. Ridiculous. Then your father approached me with a marriage proposal. Ethan continued. I knew he just wanted to use my architectural license for his own gain, but I agreed because it was the only way I could get close to you. Sophia screamed. He's lying, Mr. Davis. He's putting on an act. Ethan ignored her. The photos. I hired someone to take them because I wanted to know the real you. Not the heiress at the galas, but the everyday Chloe. Tears welled in Chloe's eyes. She remembered the photos, the way she looked when she was engrossed in a book at the library, her frustrated frown as she tried to make latte art, the gentle smile on her face as she fed a stray cat. Every moment had been captured with such intimacy, such love. Enough, Richard Davis shouted. Chloe, come with me. This man is a compulsive liar. Chloe stood frozen, torn. Who should she believe? Her father, Ethan, her own heart. Suddenly, Ethan dropped to one knee, taking her hand in front of everyone. I know this isn't the most romantic setting, but I have to ask again. Chloe Davis, will you marry me? Not a fake marriage. A real one. Her eyes widened. Are you insane? Now? Yes, now, he said, his gaze unwavering. I want your father to see that this isn't about money or revenge. It's because I love you. Absurd, her father roared, motioning to his bodyguards. Take her. Two of the guards grabbed Chloe's arms. Ethan immediately stood up, placing himself between them and her. Don't touch her. Ethan, Chloe cried out. Answer me, Chloe, he said, his eyes locked on hers. Yes or no? Tom seemed to stand still. Looking into Ethan's determined eyes, Chloe finally understood. From the moment they'd met again in the coffee shop, she had been fighting it, but she had been undeniably drawn to him. The way he fixed the pipes, his focus when he cooked, even his cunning in plotting against her father. All the pieces of him had come together to form someone she couldn't help but love. Yes, she whispered, then louder, yes, I'll marry you. Her father's face was a mask of fury. She's been brainwashed, he yelled at the guards. Get her out of here now. The guards pulled them apart, and Chloe struggled against their grip. Dad, you can't do this. We'll discuss this at home, he said, dragging her toward the door. Ethan was pinned against the wall by the other two guards, but he shouted, Richard, don't forget about those documents. If you hurt her, they'll be on the SEC's desk tomorrow morning. Her father paused and looked back with a cold smile. You think this is over? I will make you pay for this, boy. I'll be waiting, Ethan said, unflinching. But remember this, Chloe is my fiancée, and nothing you do can change that. Chloe was forced into a black sedan waiting outside. Through the window, she saw Ethan being escorted to another car. Just before he was pushed inside, he mouthed two words to her. Wait for me. The car sped away, the small town of Clear Creek disappearing behind them. Chloe leaned back against the leather seat, tears streaming down her face. But this time, they were not tears of despair. A small flame of hope had been lit in her heart. Ethan was coming for her. She knew it, and this time, she wouldn't run. The iron gates of the Davis estate clanged shut behind them, the sound echoing with a grim finality. Two bodyguards escorted Chloe to her third-floor bedroom and locked the door from the outside. She rushed to the window, watching as the black sedan carrying Ethan drove away and disappeared down the tree-lined drive. Miss Chloe, your father has asked that you freshen up and rest. The voice of the head housekeeper, Mrs. Gable's city-dwelling sister, ironically, came through the door. Dinner will be brought to your room. Chloe didn't answer. She surveyed the room she had grown up in. The pale pink wallpaper, the white French provincial furniture, the vanity table lined with expensive perfumes. Nothing had changed, yet it all felt alien. It was a perfectly preserved cage. She kicked off her shoes and fell onto the bed, burying her face in a silk pillow. Wait for me. Ethan's words replayed in her mind. Would he really come for her? How? Her father was clearly prepared for anything. Her cell phone was gone, and the landline in her room was dead. Through the window, she could see two guards patrolling the manicured lawns. She was a prisoner in her own home. The sound of running water came from the en-suite bathroom. Chloe sat up, on high alert. When she pushed the door open, she found the large jacuzzi tub filled with steaming water, rose petals floating on the surface. What was this? Good cop, bad cop. Chloe. Her mother's voice came from the bedroom. May I come in? Chloe opened the door. Her mother stood there holding a tea service, her face a mask of worried elegance. The pearl earrings she always wore glinted softly in the light. Mom, Chloe said, stepping aside. Are you here to lecture me? Her mother set the tray down with a sigh. I'm here to see my daughter. She stroked Chloe's hair. It's been 3 years. Not a single phone call. Tears pricked Chloe's eyes. I'm sorry, silly girl. Her mother pulled her down to sit on the edge of the bed. Your father is furious, but he's also desperate. The company's situation is worse than you can imagine. Chloe frowned. How bad is it? Critical, her mother whispered. If we don't get the capital injection from the Van Cess, we won't be able to make payroll next month. Chloe gasped. Davis Corp was a multi-billion-dollar enterprise. How could it have fallen so far, so fast? How? Your father has been too aggressive these past few years, her mother said, shaking her head. Too much leverage, too much risk. It was a house of cards waiting to collapse. Chloe thought of what Ethan had said about financial fraud. Was Ethan telling the truth? Did Dad really fake the progress reports? Her mother's expression grew complicated. That young man, he's far more clever than any of us gave him credit for. She paused. Yes, he is proof of your father's wrongdoing. So he really did get close to me just for revenge? Chloe's voice was barely a whisper. Her mother looked at her searchingly. What do you think? Chloe remembered the look in his eyes, the candid photos, the confession in the storm. No, he's not that person. Then trust your judgment, her mother said, standing up. Take a warm bath. I'll have dinner sent up. Later, soaking in the tub, Chloe's mind was a whirlpool of confusion. Who was Ethan Cole? A brilliant, calculating avenger? Or a man in love, forced to play a dangerous game against his future father-in-law? Dinner was her favorite French cuisine, but the food tasted like ash in her mouth. She stared out the window as darkness fell over the estate. At 9 o'clock, her father finally appeared, a document in his hand. Have you come to your senses? He asked without preamble. Julian Vance is coming for dinner tomorrow. I expect you to be on your best behavior. Chloe put down her fork. Dad, does the company really need the Van Cess that badly? His face darkened. That is none of your concern. But if Ethan was telling the truth, if the fraud is exposed. Silence, he slammed his hand on the table. What does that little punk know? His father was just as arrogant. And look where it got him. Bankrupt and dead. Chloe's eyes widened. What? Ethan's father? He killed himself? Her father seemed to realize he had said too much. The point is, you will behave tomorrow. Julian is a fine young man. You will like him. Chloe clenched her fists. I will not marry a stranger. You don't have a choice, he sneered. If you try to run again, I will make sure Ethan Cole rots in prison. Fraud, blackmail. He'll be gone for a decade. A chill went down her spine. He meant it. Get some rest, her father said, turning to leave. The stylist will be here at 10 tomorrow. The door was locked again. Chloe stood at the window, staring down at the moonlit garden she had escaped from 3 years ago. Now it was patrolled by guards and covered by security cameras. She tossed and turned all night, her thoughts consumed by Ethan. Where was he? Was he locked up too? How could he possibly fight back against her father's power? The next morning, a maid brought breakfast and a new Chanel suit. Your father's selection for you to wear today, miss. At 10 o'clock, the stylist arrived. For 3 hours, Chloe was poked, prodded, and painted like a doll. The woman in the mirror was flawless, a perfect stranger. At 3 o'clock, the housekeeper informed her that their guest had arrived. She took a deep breath and descended the grand staircase. In the living room, her father was laughing with a young man in a tailored suit. When he heard her, the man turned around. Chloe gasped. It was the man from Clear Creek, the one who had claimed to be a private investigator. Chloe, my dear, come meet Julian Vance, her father beamed. Julian extended a polite hand. A pleasure to finally meet you, Miss Davis. She shook his hand, her mind reeling. What was happening? Was this? Julian just returned from the UK, her father said proudly. He studied architecture at Cambridge. He and Ethan Cole were actually contemporaries. Chloe nearly choked. Contemporaries? This was too much of coincidence. Unless she studied Julian more closely. He looked the part, but his mannerisms were slightly off, a little too rehearsed. His eyes kept darting toward the door. "Do you enjoy traveling, Miss Davis?" he asked. "I hear you've been all over." "A little," she answered cautiously. "Mostly Europe and Southeast Asia." "Ah, Southeast Asia," he exclaimed. "I simply adore Singapore. So clean and modern, don't you think?" Singapore. Ethan's job offer. Her heart began to pound. "Yes, I love Singapore," she said, testing him. "Especially the Marina Bay area." His eyes lit up. "Oh, the Marina Bay Sands Hotel. That infinity pool is just—" Ahem! Her father cleared his throat, cutting him off. "Julian, perhaps you'd like a tour of the gardens?" Chloe was now almost certain. This man was a fake, sent by Ethan. But how had her father not noticed? In the garden, while her father was on the phone, she whispered, "Who are you?" Julian winked. "Your future husband, of course." "Cut the crap," she hissed. "You're the PI from Clear Creek." He smiled. "Miss Davis has a sharp memory. But for now, I prefer you stick with my current identity." "Did Ethan send you?" "Shoo." He gestured for her to be quiet. "Your father is coming back." The rest of the afternoon was a blur of polite conversation. Julian kept dropping hints about Singapore, clearly trying to send her a message. At dinner, she couldn't resist. "So, Julian, you said you knew Ethan at Cambridge?" The table went silent. Her father shot her a death glare. "Yes, that's right," the imposter said calmly. "Though we weren't close. He was a few years ahead of me." "Really?" Chloe said, putting down her silverware. "Do you know where he is now?" "Chloe," her father warned. But Julian just smiled. "Last I heard, he was setting up his own firm. Somewhere in Singapore, I believe." Her father's face was thunderous. "Julian, let's move on from this topic." "Of course, Mr. Davis," he said, but under the table, he gently tapped her foot with his. After dinner, as she walked him to his car, Chloe whispered, "Tell Ethan I'm done with these games." He smiled. "He told me to give you a message. 72 hours. What does that mean?" "In 72 hours, everything will be resolved," he said meaningfully. "He asked that you be patient and not do anything impulsive. And if I don't, then he would be very disappointed," he said, getting into his car. "After all, he is very much in love with you." She watched the car drive away, her mind in a fog. Was this Ethan's grand plan, or just another layer of deception? Back in her room, she found her mother waiting. "So, what did you think of Julian?" Chloe scoffed. "Mom, stop pretending. That wasn't Julian Vance." Her mother's expression didn't change. "Oh, then who was it?" "One of Ethan's men," Chloe said, watching her mother closely. "You knew, didn't you?" Her mother stood up and walked to the window. "Your father has made a lot of enemies over the years," she said softly, "including the real Julian Vance." Chloe's eyes widened. "What do you mean?" "I mean," she turned, a mysterious smile on her face. "The real Julian Vance was never going to show up. Now get some rest. There's another act to this play tomorrow." The next day, the house was in chaos. Her father was in his study, shouting and breaking things. Chloe learned from a maid that the real Vance Real Estate had called, confirming that their son was out of the country and had no plans to return. The bigger surprise came at noon. The SEC was raiding the Davis Corp headquarters, seizing financial records. Before rushing to his office, her father ordered the guards to double the watch on her. She stood at her window, watching him leave. She finally understood Ethan's plan. He wasn't just saving her. He was systematically dismantling her father's empire. But what would happen in 72 hours? That evening, her mother slipped her a burner phone. "From Ethan. There's only one number in it. Use it in an emergency." "Mom, what is going on?" "We're giving you your freedom," she said simply. "But we need you to play your part." "Which is—" "Wait. Until when?" "Until your father is too distracted to worry about you," she said. "It will be soon." On the third day, the news broke. Davis Corp. Under investigation for massive financial fraud. Stock plummets 50%. At noon, her mother came to her room. "It's time. Your father is being detained for questioning by the SEC." She handed Chloe a bag. "Cash, your passport, and car keys. There's a car waiting for you in the garage." "You want me to run?" "No," her mother corrected. "I want you to go to the man you love." Tears streamed down Chloe's face. Mom, go, she said, hugging her tightly. Ethan is waiting. Chloe changed her clothes, and her mother led her down a back staircase to the garage. A nondescript sedan was waiting. Remember, her mother said, whatever happens, no more running. Face it. Chloe hugged her one last time, then got in the car. As she drove out of the gates of the estate, she didn't look back. This wasn't an escape. It was a beginning. The GPS was already set for Clear Creek. She didn't know what she would find there, but for the first time, she wasn't afraid. She pressed her foot on the accelerator. The 72 hours were up. Game over. Clear Creek was quieter than she remembered. Chloe parked at the end of Main Street and walked toward Ethan's studio. Night had fallen, and the streetlights cast long shadows. The coffee shop was dark, a closed sign hanging in the window. The studio was dark, too. Chloe's heart pounded as she stood on the porch. Her mother had said Ethan would be waiting, but clearly, he wasn't here. She used the spare key he had given her. The door creaked open, revealing an empty room that smelled of dust. She flipped the light switch. The studio had been completely cleared out. The drafting table, the chairs, the sketches on the wall, all gone. Ethan, she called out, her voice swallowed by the emptiness. No answer. She ran upstairs. The bedroom was bare. The moonlight streamed in, illuminating the empty space where the bed had been. Her legs gave out, and she sank to the floor. Had she been too late? Had he left? Or had this all been an elaborate game? She pulled out the burner phone and stared at the single contact. What if he had just used her to get his revenge and then disappeared? You bastard, she whispered, tossing the phone aside and hugging her knees. The phone suddenly buzzed. She scrambled for it. The screen glowed with the name E. She took a shaky breath and answered. You're late, Ethan's voice said, warm and teasing. A sob escaped her. Where are you? Turn around. Look out the window. She ran to the window. Across the street, a black SUV was parked, its headlights flashing twice. A tall figure was leaning against it, a phone to his ear. It was Ethan. Come on down, he said. We have a flight to catch. A flight? To where? New York. She frowned. Why New York? Because, he chuckled, that's where I booked our wedding. Chloe almost dropped the phone. What? Hurry up, Miss Runaway Bride, he said, and hung up. She flew down the stairs and out the door. He was standing by the car, dressed in a sharp suit, looking every bit the groom. He opened his arms as she approached. She stopped a few feet away from him. What is all this? An elopement, he said innocently. Isn't that why you came? I came to what? He grinned. Apologize? Profess your undying love? Beg me to marry you? Her cheeks burned. In your dreams. I came to get my dignity back. You and your fake Julian Vance played me for a fool. He laughed. That was Leo, my college roommate. Pretty good actor, right? Dad never suspected a thing. And my mother was in on it? My greatest ally, Ethan said, opening the passenger door. Get in. I'll explain on the way. She hesitated, then got in. The car smelled of leather and mint. He pulled onto the empty road, heading for the highway. So this was all your plan? She asked. Bankrupt my father, and then marry his daughter. He finished for her. Correct. Is it your revenge? He shook his head. It's justice. Your father destroyed my family. I exposed his crimes. We're even. Chloe stared at him. My father destroyed your family. It was a long time ago, he said, his voice quiet. My father was a small contractor. He refused to cut corners on a Davis Corp project, so your father framed him for negligence and bankrupted him. His knuckles were white on the steering wheel. The day he jumped, I was walking home from school. Chloe covered her mouth. Oh my God, Ethan, I had no idea. Of course you didn't, he said with a sad smile. Your father is very good at burying his secrets. I didn't find out the whole truth until after college. So you to get close to me for revenge, she whispered. He was silent for a long moment as they merged onto the highway. At first, yes. But then what? Then I discovered that Richard Davis's daughter was nothing like him, he said, glancing at her. You were rebellious and stubborn, but you were also kind and brave. I saw you swap out a driver's champagne for sparkling cider at a party because you knew he was a recovering alcoholic. I saw you anonymously pay a single mother's college tuition. I even know you leaked information to one of your father's competitors because he was trying to ruin them unfairly. She was stunned. How? How do you know all that? I told you, he smiled. I know the real you. Not the heiress. Just Chloe. She looked out the window at the dark landscape rushing by. He had been watching her, learning everything about her. It wasn't stalking. It was love. So now what? She asked softly. My father is ruined. Your revenge is complete. Why do you still want to marry me? He didn't answer right away. As they approached the airport, the lights of the terminal glittered like a fallen constellation. Because, he finally said, the satisfaction of revenge is nothing compared to the joy of loving you. Her heart felt like it was going to burst. She turned her head, hiding the tears in her eyes. At the airport, he pulled 2 suitcases from the trunk. You even packed for me? Just the basics, he said, handing one to her. I guess on the clothes. You're on your own for makeup and underwear. She opened the case. Inside were a few simple outfits, a pair of flats, toiletries, and a copy of her favorite author's latest novel. How did you know I love Elena Ferrante? You wrote your senior thesis on her, he said, taking her hand. Come on, we're going to be late. He led her through the terminal, his hand warm and steady in hers. Everything was prearranged. They breezed through check-in and security and were sitting in first class within minutes. How long have you been planning this? She asked as the plane began to taxi. Since the day you ran away. Seriously, he said, turning to her. After you disappeared, I confirmed the Singapore job, sold the condo, moved the money offshore, and started compiling the evidence against your father. And you followed me to Clear Creek? I protected you in Clear Creek, he corrected. Your father sent 3 different teams of investigators after you. I led them all astray. She thought of Leo, the fake PI. So you were just waiting for me? Not just waiting. He smiled and pulled a small velvet box from his pocket. Her breath caught in her throat. He opened it. Inside was a stunning, unique engagement ring, an oval-cut blue diamond surrounded by a halo of smaller white diamonds. I was going to give this to you at our first wedding, he said, slipping it from the box. Better late than never. She stared at the ring. Ethan, we need to talk. The plane is taking off, he said, fastening her seatbelt. We'll talk when we land. For the 2-hour flight, Chloe pretended to sleep, her mind racing. He loved her. She was sure of it now. But did he love her, or the rebellious ideal he had built up in his mind? And what about her? Did she love him, or was she just swept up in the drama and his devotion? When they landed, Ethan hailed a cab and gave the driver an address she knew all too well, the street. Regis Hotel, where their original wedding had been planned. You booked a room? Something like that, he said with a mysterious smile. The concierge greeted him by name and handed him a key card. Everything is ready, Mr. Cole. The elevator took them to the penthouse suite. He opened the door and gestured for her to go in. She stepped inside and gasped. The entire suite had been transformed into an intimate wedding venue. There were flowers everywhere, hundreds of candles, and a small, elegant arch of white roses stood before the floor-to-ceiling windows, which offered a panoramic view of the glittering city. This is our wedding, he said, closing the door behind them. She turned to him. Ethan, we can't just. I know what you're thinking, he said, walking toward her. You think this is too fast, too crazy. You're not sure if I love the real you, or just the idea of you. She stared at him. How did you know? Because I know you, he said, cupping her face in his hands. I know you sing in the shower. You hate coconut, and you're terrified of pigeons. And he leaned in and whispered in her ear, I also know you secretly love it when I kiss your neck. A shiver went down her spine. This isn't fair. You've had years to study me, and you just need to listen to your heart, he said, stepping back. So, Chloe Davis, do you love me? The room was silent. She looked at his face, illuminated by the soft candlelight, and she knew the answer. This arrogant, brilliant, stubborn man loved her in his own crazy way. He knew her. He had waited for her. And she, in her own way, had probably loved him since the moment she decided to run. Yes, she whispered. I love you, Ethan. His eyes lit up, but his next words made her want to hit him. Excellent. Just one thing. We'll need to get a full medical workup before we sign anything. I have a strict, no damaged goods policy. What? She shrieked, her anger flaring. Ethan Cole, you are an absolute bastard. He roared with laughter and pulled her into his arms as she tried to pummel his chest. I'm kidding, God. You're adorable when you're angry. Let me go, she struggled. I take it back. Too late, he said, holding her tight. You said the words. You're stuck with me now. She stopped fighting and looked up at him. You planned this all along, didn't you? Every last detail, he said with a triumphant grin. But you loved every minute of it, didn't you? She stood on her toes and crushed her lips to his. He was surprised for a second. Then he kissed her back, deeply and passionately. When they finally broke apart, they were both breathless. Is that a yes to the wedding? He murmured. She smiled slyly. I'll tell you in the morning. The next morning, Ethan woke up to an empty bed. Chloe, he sat up, looking around the suite. The bathroom was empty. The living room was empty. On the coffee table was a single note. Gonna find a dress. Be there at noon. Don't be late, groom. Your runaway bride. He stared at the note, and then a slow, happy grin spread across his face. This time, he knew she would be there. At 11:50 a.m., in a private ballroom at the hotel, Ethan stood under the floral arch. In the seats were a handful of guests. Chloe's mother, Maya, Leo, and a few of Ethan's close friends. Richard Davis was not among them. You sure she's coming? Leo whispered nervously. Last time. She'll be here, Ethan said, glancing at his watch. 11:59. The ballroom doors remained closed. A flicker of doubt crossed Ethan's face. Don't worry, Chloe's mother said reassuringly. She's different now. At exactly 12 p.m., the grand ballroom doors were thrown open. Everyone turned to look. The doorway was empty. Ethan's heart sank. Had she done it again? Just as he was about to step forward, music swelled from the speakers. A side door opened, and Chloe appeared in a simple, elegant white dress. She wasn't walking slowly down an aisle. She was running, a radiant smile on her face, her dress flowing behind her. She was running not away from a marriage, but toward one. Ethan stood frozen, watching her come closer, his heart hammering in his chest. Sorry I'm late, she said, breathless, as she reached him. Traffic. He smiled. You were worth the wait. The officiant cleared his throat. Dearly beloved, we are gathered here today. Chloe didn't hear the rest. Her eyes were locked on Ethan's, and in them, she saw her future. When the officiant said, You may now kiss the bride, Ethan leaned in and whispered in her ear, This time you can't run. She smiled and kissed him. Who said I want to? 3 years later. Singapore. Chloe stood at the floor-to-ceiling window of their penthouse, looking out at the glittering skyline. Behind her, Ethan was trying to coax their 6-month-old daughter to sleep. She's finally down, he whispered, gently placing the baby in her crib. That was harder than negotiating a $10 million contract. Chloe laughed. The great Ethan Cole, defeated by a baby. Only by the two of you, he said, coming up behind her and wrapping his arms around her waist. What are you thinking about? The first time we met, she said, leaning back against him. Was it really at that architecture exhibition? Absolutely, he said, kissing the top of her head. Red dress. Almost fell. She turned in his arms to face him. Why didn't you just ask me out then? I was a broke graduate, remember? He grinned. Though in hindsight, it probably would have been easier than all this, but not nearly as interesting, she said, standing on her toes to kiss him. By the way, my dad is coming to visit tomorrow. Ethan made a face. Again, didn't he just leave last month? He likes you more than me now. Chloe rolled her eyes. It's all. Ethan, take a look at this new project. Ethan, can you review this contract? Ethan. He laughed. What can I say? I'm his favorite son-in-law. Oh, shut up, she said, playfully punching his arm. Go check the baby monitor. I think the connection is fuzzy. He started toward the nursery, then turned back. Hey, remind your dad to bring the prospectus for that new development he mentioned. You tell him. That would be too forward, he winked. It would ruin my image as the son-in-law who married for love, not money. Chloe grabbed a pillow from the sofa and threw it at him. You're impossible. He caught it easily, his laughter filling the room. Outside, the lights of Singapore sparkled, but inside, they had built their own small, bright world. No more running.